Yo.
Yo, dude.
Hey, what's going on?
I'm alright, man. I'm alright. Have you set up a GoFundMe for that police officer that was kneeling on that dude's head?
Huh?
Have you started a GoFundMe for that cop? Have you set up a Go get all the legal aid he needs?
No. But I'll tell you what, I and people may hate me for saying this, but I feel bad for that cop. Although it's funny. I was talking to my friend Dave about it last night because I don't know if you saw the guy who got murdered. It came out that he was doing porn or something like that, and generally that would be completely irrelevant. And like I told my friend, it's the nature of the internet that's like the second thing to come
Yeah,
out.
it kind of made me laugh. Like how much porn are Americans watching where that comes up?
Well, see, and that's the thing. It's if you look at it, it's
It's
like
either set up or that's just like an amazing coincidence. That
no,
someone watching porn would be able to pick him out and go, oh, it's whacking off to that.
no. What happened was
Like
is
just the
is
other day, man.
the porn site was posting "Rest in peace to the legend George Floyd." Like they were like, "Oh, we lost one of our stars." Like, which is
No way.
yeah. So, and I mean, again, nature of the internet. That this thing happens. The first thing to come out is, um, video of him and I should have updated the video titles. I'll do that later. I'm just waking up and I'm feeling awful. The weather around here, it goes from fucking 80 degrees hot and humid to fucking freezing. And
Yeah, see, the corona's completely gone from America. You guys are eradicated.
But didn't I tell you
How?
I told you a week ago America's done with it. It's done and over. I'm telling you, once the weather got nice, and I'm sure you've seen the videos now. Like there's a video of the reporter being in the middle of the crowd being like, "Nobody's wearing masks." And then the old guy's walking around him with the camera.
Okay, camera.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Neither is your cameraman, neither is any of your crew. What are you talking about?" Yeah, America's over it. You got to remember, America's Wild West most of the country. So, but it just adds another layer to Millie's thing. Anyway, real quick, just to end on the George Floyd porn thing. What I was telling my friend last night is, I understand it's irrelevant, and it's not cool to dig up dirt, but when you have these incidents where there's this default motive where it's black man died, white man had his knee on his neck, because even the coroner report now is saying he didn't die of asphyxiation. It was a combination of pre-existing and whatever. Granted, it seems like I'd bet there's a bit of cause and effect. Like you don't have someone's knee on the back of your neck for nearly 10 minutes, drop dead a few minutes later, and say the two aren't related. Like that's
Yeah.
but he knew two of the cops for it's looking like almost a decade now. So let's just put these two side by side. What do we think is more likely? And this is the way I put it to my friend. Two coworkers are complicit in the death of another coworker of 10 years because he's black and they just decided 10 years is too long, or two former coworkers attempted to assert dominance over their former coworker because he makes videos asserting dominance over other women. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think the police officer intended to kill the guy. I really don't.
I think he might have done. I think there's two things in my head. I've got two different ones.
See,
One of them is
I
close to yours. One of them's quite close to yours, and that is if you're working in a nightclub. I'm sorry to say that security, nightclub security, are fucking cunts, man. They're
yeah,
involved in criminal activity all the time.
all the
So
time.
when he was spending that printed money, that fake money, how do we know that when he saw him spending the money that the cop isn't kind of like in on it as well?
Well,
It's
see, and
like, you fucking idiot.
that's what they're thinking. They're thinking there's something more organized behind
Yeah, I
this.
think the $20 note was counterfeit. Maybe that he knew where they were coming from.
Well, and even at that, like, here's the other thing. Let's say, let's say, for example, that these two guys were security officers together, and they've already tried to say, oh, we don't know how much they interacted, whatever. One was outside, one was inside. I've performed at nightclubs with security. Before the doors open, everyone's inside. They're all hanging out. I remember the first time I was at a club before playing a concert, everyone's inside smoking when smoking is banned. And I'm like, what's going on here? And they're like, well, yeah, you can't smoke inside when we're open for business, but we're not open for business right now, so light up a cigarette. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that's how this worked.
Yeah, same here. I mean, like cocaine on the bar. Yeah, when it's closed,
Yeah,
it's fine.
exactly. Exactly. So to think and I don't want to put out a I'm sure about this because I don't want to be in the same boat as these people who are like, I'm sure it's racism, but I would find it very unlikely if they were coworkers that they didn't know about this guy's other job. Now, let's just say they were all miserable coworkers together and they don't like this security thing and having to push people around and the two guys, it's an easy transfer over, from being security to being a police officer. Essentially, you guard the club till you guard your city and all that. But let's say George Floyd, he doesn't have to worry about roughing anyone up and endangerment to his life. The only thing he's beaten up is that pussy. I mean, to think that there isn't some sort of I'd feel some sort of way if I was working with some guy, we both had a job we didn't like and everything like that, and next thing I know, he's off doing good and all he's doing is fucking bitches for money. To think there isn't some sort of jealousy or insecurity I mean, that's far more likely than because they were black. It's just, again, my friend said it's irrelevant, and I do agree to his point. Yes, on one level it's irrelevant, but it's far more relevant than everything we've been told by the media. And that's the real problem with the fake news, though. Is when
just like I'm the same. Like, I don't know what really happened, but I want to throw out there that he does look. A lot of these cops, especially in this state, have a really bad reputation already.
Oh
And
yeah,
the guy looks like a bit of a steroid head. He mixed that with doing cocaine on the beat or doing some amphetamines, which is now prescribed out there.
and
He
that
could've just been
fucking
trucked up and
knee on the
just
neck
went
shit was
to
part
the-
of his training.
What was that?
The knee on the neck fucking, I mean, that place has training where unconscious chokeholds are part of how they operate.
Yeah, it seems to be a shoot now. They seem to really have to shoot first, ask later.
Yeah.
Training, which came up again and again and again. Because they remember that's the same place they shot that homeless meth dude, weren't they, for camping? So they've had loads of incidents like this, loads.
Yeah.
I wonder if it is just all staged as well, because there are people saying that cop is the same cop running around during the Boston firecracker.
Well,
Remember those two
oh.
cops running around undercover? It looks a lot like him.
What was it? Somebody.
But that could have been what happened. Like, they could have known who they were picking up.
No, well,
Minnesota seems to be a dodgy guy.
well, it's interesting.
A lot more cops could be on it now. Like, just finish this guy off because we're all gonna get roped into this.
I don't. Here's the thing. I don't
for a $20
remember.
bill.
I don't remember. I was working with someone last night, and they had mentioned, and I think they said that a friend of mine thought the entire thing was scripted and it was all out of a movie and stuff like that. And the first thing I said to him is, I said, listen, I know this is a statement that most people find it as the third rail. Like, this is the do not say, you will be kicked off of everywhere statement. I said, but I think Sandy Hook was staged and all that stuff. I said, and my reasons for this are things I saw on that day on the live broadcasts. When I'm being told a guy used certain guns to shoot a school, and then I'm seeing them remove the guns from the trunk of the car, that doesn't make sense. I said, and there were enough of those that afterwards, and I hear everyone else's theories and them pointing to it, the only thing I can go to is, I don't know what happened. but I know what I'm being told is not what's true. I said
Yeah,
that being said, I said it at some point it becomes irrelevant whether the incident itself is manufactured because the media has a script and will only report on stories that fit into the script. I said, so you can have incidents going on. Like, there was a case 2 years ago that new audio came out for a month ago of some black dude saying, yeah, I saw myself on the news. I was wanted for killing a white guy, so I figured I might as well take a couple more down before they come and get me. Walks up to a truck after he already killed another white guy on his, I gotta get as many as I can game. Walks up to a truck. There's a Mexican driver and a white guy in the passenger seat. He goes past the Mexican driver and kills the white guy. I mean, there was such racist intent. He's sparing people to get to the white people. But the media doesn't report that because it doesn't fit into the script. That being said, Trayvon Martin, no birth records, no death records. That whole thing seems very much manufactured. The mom's turned into a political operative. The dad's a high-level Freemason. I mean, that whole thing is so sketchy. I have serious doubts about it, but then again, I see these interviews with George Zimmerman, and it really seems like it was a situation that just went really wrong and fit really well into the script, or at least the media was going to make it fall. I mean, either way, this is the other problem. You can get so caught up in the weeds. Either way, what does it matter if Trayvon was real or not real, or this incident is real or not real, when the consequences are always real? I mean, it's interesting because that's actually a point I've been making a lot in my mental health job to people, because it's, of course, calls are increasing with the coronavirus and all that, and to some extent, sorry if I'm peeking everyone, I just noticed I keep redlining, but a lot of the calls are becoming less and less severe and more just people being bored, but every so often I'll get someone calling up being like, I'm really anxious, I'm having a hard time, I don't know why I'm like this, I don't know why, and I just tell them, why does it matter why you're like this? Just accept you are like this right now. Look at how you would like to be, and let's figure out how to get from point A to point B. Or if you're at point B and you want to get to point C, somehow it doesn't matter how you got to point A because you're already past that. And that's sort of how I view these things, where it's like, all right, well, regardless of the motives or anything like that, again, it sucks. This George Floyd guy obviously did videos talking against this rioting and looting shit, but now we're at the point of rioting and looting, and now with those Millie Weaver videos, it's starting to seem like it's something far graver than, just...
Yeah, the timing is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is, and I'll tell you what, I think they tried for it a few weeks ago with that other...
Yeah, I think they did too. It's always the same script. I think they know more and more information at the very beginning that would calm the whole thing down, and they all decide to hold on to it. Well, maybe they don't decide to hold on to it because they get told what to report on every morning. But it's like a lot of the stuff that could have toned this down. It's just sat on for ages.
Yeah.
And you think this happens every... I mean, I am actually way more worried about it. Way more worried about it. Because, I don't know, I mean, I guess it calmed down a lot last night, by the looks of it. Which is good news. I'm guessing that's the case. But that, from what I was watching on Facebook and Twitter, it looked worse than the Purge movie, man.
Yeah. I mean...
I saw one dude getting run over by a FedEx truck, just having his skull scraped across the ground. We saw NYPD running people over, which, I can understand that. You've seen all the bricks being piled up.
That footage...
Busting the umbrella, man.
I'll tell you what, that footage, and it's so funny, there's a part of it that reminds me of a friend of mine, the way the guy talks, his inflections and all that, being like, I see you, we gotta do better. There ain't no construction around here. Why are you dropping off a pile of bricks in front of the courthouse? I mean, yeah, that's the type of stuff where it's like, there's more to it. Like, even Gavin McInnes did a video where Proud Boys were trending today. And this just shows you, how does that happen? how does that, like, something like that is just false with your eyes, how does something like that pick up traction? And the only thing that you can put to that is what Millie Weaver has uncovered, that they are using social media in a weaponized, militarized fashion to disseminate disinformation. Like, the idea that anyone looked at any of that shit going on was like, Trump supporters. That's what it is. You see, the Trump supportist, white supremacist Proud Boys are dressing up in blackface and putting on, masks and all this other stuff, and they're smashing AutoZone. I mean, most of the Proud Boys are law enforcement. Like, that theory is so mental, and then somehow it's trending with 150,000 tweets on Twitter. Like, how? Like, I mean, it is like generally, I try not to get into the doom and gloom. I really think, I mean, even my mom, me and my mom would argue over coronavirus and all of that stuff. But I could red pill her last night on what's going on with these protests and riots real easy on a couple levels. And one of the levels even is on the, like, I found this video that had a handful of clips of Nick Fuentes talking about certain issues, and him in very clear and concise ways crystallizing a lot of what's going on, and basically talking about this, like, us versus them mentality. Like, how quickly there are large amounts of people, both white and black, who are like, oh, cop injures black man, system, white supremacy, everywhere, tear everything down. Like, and actually, Tucker Carlson has a really good intro monologue about all of this, where he says there are two groups of people: the people that build society through working, charity, taxes, etc., and the people who want to tear it down. And he said, and somehow, the people that want to tear it down have gotten the better deal. They are using violence and making demands, and they are being appeased and placated by the media. Like, I'll tell you, I don't support any of that rioting shit, but you show up at CNN's front door, and I gotta say, that's karma. That's karma.
That was bullshit, man. That's the biggest load of bullshit I've ever seen in my life. Because when I watched the video, it seemed completely orchestrated.
Well, and that's the other thing too, though. That's
the actual protesters were being held back.
Yeah.
And there were some pretty well-built guys who looked like they were training hard as skateboarders, trying to smash the windows to egg on the people behind to push past the barrier. I think those were cops smashing up CNN, or CNN staff employing people to do it, to try and cause the situation. And then they can go, oh, look, us journalists are being attacked, or no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That looked completely staged to me.
Oh, I mean, all of it is to some extent. I mean, and that's really the problem with it. I mean, dropping off bricks in front of somewhere, that's staging it.
There's even a video on YouTube of cops destroying their own cop car. Seen that one?
No.
Yeah, see, like riot cops are smashing up their own car. It's not, they're not even trying to hide it. Yeah, excuse me, one sec. I mean, did it calm down last night, or am I wrong, or was it still just as crazy?
I really don't know. I know when I got in, there's plenty of video and footage and all of that to go through, but I'm not 100% sure.
And are you expecting more tonight, or is it calming down?
Like I know in my city there was a protest, but it's, my city, again, I was talking to my friend Dave about it, and I mean, his concern and what he's worried about isn't really the same thing I'm concerned about. Like, I don't see any of them when I have the thing open with Paul. But like, part of it with me, I think I'm just so numb to some of it, where it's like there's so much crime and danger around me anyway that I just operate in this sort of like, well, if it's gonna happen, like, and also like it's always weird for me to sort of voice this to anyone I know that isn't overtly Christian like I am, but I mean, I know people that even through the coronavirus, they were just like, God's got a plan. And I mean, 10 years ago, I would hear that and I'd be like, well, that's a fucking cop out. But to some extent, that's sort of what I fall onto now, where it's, you can't get me too worked up or worried over anything because
No, I get
my
that, but do you
faith is
think
that
it's calmed
strong.
down?
Like,
Do you
it's,
think it's
what
still
do,
gonna
what do
go
I
on?
have to worry about? Like, I live
No,
my life in
that's
line
not
with.
asking that. I'm asking, do you think it's calming down, or do you think it's going to keep on going?
Oh, it's keep it. I mean, they're gonna throw everything they can until November at us. I mean, it is. If this
So
dies
it's
down,
not
it
dying
will be
out.
something
So
else.
it looked to me as if it was dying out at least a bit. But I
Well,
don't know.
now here's the interesting thing that Gavin brings up. These Antifa protesters, you see them in videos. $150 brand new batons. You know, the ones that you can snap and they extend out. Brand new 150 batons for all of them. At Gavin's things, they're throwing bottles of piss with, you know, that are like high-end Ciroc vodka bottles. Someone is funding these people. Even I'll tell you what, here's another thing. All these celebrities leaping in saying, if people get arrested, we'll cover your bail. Colin Kaepernick, we'll cover your bail. All right, well, Trump's declaring these groups terrorist organizations. So now you're all funding terrorism. So
yeah, I mean, we predicted
gotta
that before
calm down.
Trump was even president.
It's gotta calm down because this could very easily, I mean, you want to talk about taking out the deep state? This could very indirectly
I
do
don't know,
that.
man, because again, look at the timing of it, and because of the corona, that means they released all these prisoners, which was perfect timing to release all these criminals.
And
out on the
I mean,
street.
even something as simple as telling everyone to wear masks. Like,
Yeah, that as well.
I mean, that's
And then the lockdown, just to carry on with that, the lockdown's already hit people mentally.
yeah.
They're already at They're already at breaking point, boiling point. Then you let all these prisoners out. And then I actually blame the police a lot for this, because the reason that police station burned down, I think, is because they stood down. And once they stood down, I think they knew very well it was going to get burned out.
But I'll tell you what, I would
I
not.
don't understand why the police are standing down in any.
Oh, I'll tell you why. I'll give you two other examples that I think will prove to end up being similar.
Well,
What?
let me just finish, because I think they want it to escalate. And in it's not the most disturbing video, but the disturbing videos in, I think it's in Atlanta, where they're in the suburbs and the military are now being called in. And they're like, get in your house, get in your house. And the family are on their porch and they get shot at with the plastic bullets. And they're like, line them up.
Yeah,
So you're going to shoot people that are on their porch? Like, what the fuck are you doing at this point?
yeah, I haven't seen that. But what
Yeah,
you're
it's like suburbs. There's no riot going on. It's a quiet suburb, and the military are coming in. What do you call them? I can't remember what you call them.
to
Yeah, but they're like military, so they're not police. And they're rolling into the streets, and everyone, get in your house, get in your house. And because this couple are filming it on their porch, they get shot at.
to what you're saying about the police station being burned down, just the two things that come to mind with that are World Trade Centers got taken down, and there was a new insurance policy taken out on them a month beforehand. AutoZone.
Well, it's not that gives you the excuse to pull in the military. At
well,
that point, you've lost control. Pull in the military.
yes and no. I mean, I think you can rationalize that without it specifically being a police station. But here's the other thing: AutoZone happens to be a target all the time, coincidentally. Like you know, you have in Ferguson they burned down an AutoZone. This time an AutoZone. Who's got the vendetta against car parts? Well, who owns AutoZone? George Soros. So
No way.
yeah, that came out. I think that was in one of Millie's videos, that they are targeting businesses owned by George Soros. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So I mean, I think we're gonna see something where, watch, it'll even be something like the building
Well, look, there could be a
needed
good
certain
reason that I don't.
repairs and all of this other stuff,
Well,
and they
I
let
don't
it
know
burn
much
down
about
as an excuse
auto
to build a
thing,
new one.
but if you're going to hit an economic collapse, we always knew that the car market was going to be a bubble, just like the housing bubble anyway, without the corona. So everyone's going to default in their car loans when you reopen, right?
I don't know. I'm not versed
Well,
in
yeah, I
that.
mean, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? If no one's got a job, they can't keep up their car repayments, the car's gone.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, and this is, again, I'm not, because I'm completely knowledgeable. It could go one of two ways.
Because haven't Hertz gone out of business in America because
Huh?
of the corona? Hertz are out of business. The car rental in America, they're out of business now.
Yeah, but the thing is I've also heard though that there's a likely chance that and this is again why they're having to do this off the heels of coronavirus. This whole idea of doom and gloom, endless depression, where it's going to take 10 years for us to rebound. I don't think so. I'm telling you, I don't think we would be back to where we were when coronavirus started, but I think we would have at least been back to 2016 by the election in November. I mean, it would have undone everything Trump had accomplished, but I don't think because here's the thing: is the people that still have jobs are itching to get back to work. The economy would rebound quicker than the media is telling you, and I think they know that. And again, this is Millie's whole thing, which I'm telling you, anyone who sees this video, pause this and go watch Millie Weaver's the Deep State Racket, the Racket expose one, the teaser one for the PsyOps one. I mean, some of it is just so in depth as far as what's going on here, and I mean, like, just mind-blowing stuff. Like, it's so, all of this is so organized and operated, and it's the same exact things we have done to overthrow places in the Ukraine and this and that. And what it is they are using predictive algorithms through the NSA that are reading all of the information and basically deciding, oh, well, Biden's not going to win because of this and that and the next factor. Therefore, we need to alter. I mean, it's like some sci-fi dystopia, and they're like a timekeepers bureau, and they're like, we need to ensure the safety of the timeline so that our guy gets into office. Therefore, if coronavirus didn't do what it's supposed to do, race war. I mean, that's why I, especially at this point, discount the economic thing, because that was their whole motive for coronavirus. Their whole motive for coronavirus was to tank the economy so that Trump would be weakened going into the election. Well, obviously they don't think that's going to hold up, because now they're in race war mode. So the economic depression thing, I sort of think this whole riot business discredits it on a lot of levels. I think the economy was going to come back to a level that would basically make it insignificant to what their predictions were. Because I mean, again, let's take it, these are the predictions of the same people that are wrong about everything else.
One thing I noticed with it being staged, which no one else had noticed, is with every, I think I've seen maybe 20 hit and runs, where they hit the protesters in a 4x4 and they drive off. Now, the thing with that is, if you notice how every single car was a 4x4. So that tells me something. And what it tells me is, if I was to set this up, I would want, where you get protesters to surround cars, you want to attack the 4x4s really hard. Because if you attack a smaller car and it speeds off, it's probably going to get stuck and a driver's going to get murdered.
Yeah.
But if you attack a 4x4, he'll easily drive through the crowd and make it through the other side.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they pick cars which will do a good job of running people over. Then they do it so they will speed ahead, and just whoever gets rammed gets rammed.
I mean, if
So I haven't seen any normal sized cars getting hit. It's always cars that would do a great job of just plowing through people.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sound like a sicko. A lot of cars would get stuck once they run over a couple of people, just get stuck.
Well,
So I
and
thought it
that's
was weird that every single one they attacked was a car that's more than capable of ramming through. It's like they want to cause the driver to do that.
yeah. Well, it's again in Millie's video, she shows that group. What is it like, Sunrise Movement, or and think about that as a name. Like you have a group called I mean, it's something Sunrise Organization or Sunrise Movement or Sunrise something, but it sounds so like it's a beautiful morning, birds are chirping, this and that, and instead you got this fucking hippie chick that looks like the one of those Antifa protesters, the one that it came out does like the Super Bush porno movies. Why is it all of the people tied into this Antifa, towns burning, dudes dying? Everyone's doing porn nowadays. Someone's got an OnlyFans account at least. But anyway, the chick in the video is saying burning buildings is a legitimate form of protest and empowerment, and we want this to spread like wildfire and this and that. Like, Dave just said, speaking of, I had seen protesters today that are blocking off part of the Sprainbrook Parkway. Yeah, that's the thing that boggles my mind the most. These people blocking off major highways, and that people aren't just plowing through them. Like, I'm sorry, I'll be the first to say, if I had a big ass truck and there was some protest going on and I got somewhere to be, and these people are not legitimate protesters, but they are provocateurs, disruptors, and everything like that, and they are because here's the thing is that null and voids your call for justice. Stopping people from carrying on their lives, infringing upon the freedoms of others, null and voids your call for justice. I mean, I'm all for getting your voice out there, having your voice heard, and all of that. Stopping other people from doing what they need to do is not justice. Like, yeah, they should not be stopping traffic on highways. They shouldn't be stopping traffic anywhere. That's just highway or not highway. So when I see them getting plowed into, I just sort of am like, that's called cause and effect. That's consequences for your action. Like, I mean,
Well, wait till they start using this track and trace that they set up for COVID to start getting these looters. Oh, we'll just use the track and trace just to stop the flu. It's not, guys. You're going to start seeing
well, and
American citizens
that is the thing. Like, there's this other guy who makes videos I've been watching. I don't know if you've seen him. Spiro is his name.
Yeah, I've seen a bit of that, yeah.
He's really good too, and he seems to have come out of nowhere, and he's like what I would consider like the those that were sort of born out of the Alex Jones generation. But he's done things where it's like the liberty movement, I would just say, is very much between a rock and a hard place, because how do you stop this, especially the ground level thing? Like, because this is the thing that worries me the most about stuff is, and it really shows you the full power of the deep state and how little power the president has, because we were always given these narratives of, oh, Bush is building FEMA camps, the Patriot Act, this and that. Oh, Obama passed the NDAA, military on the streets and all of this other stuff. And yet, these institutions, through the inspector generals and everyone else, have such ingrained power. And the other thing is, again, in Millie's videos, she shows it. She even brings one of the things back to Snowden, when Snowden was revealing stuff. Because what you had is, with Brennan and these other people in the CIA, they took the NSA data streams and then found a way to mirror them into their private intelligence contracting corporations, which are basically a network of shell corporations. So this information is being, like, it's going through everywhere. It's not a single stream to one single place. It has branches off, and other people are using it for their own private businesses and shit like that. And it's again all of that predictive tracking, tracing, and all of that nonsense. But you just end up in this position where it's like, what do you do besides send in the military? You are having a armed
Well, you don't
insurrection.
stand down in the first place. That's my point.
That's
you don't
a
allow them
yeah.
to burn things down. You don't leave bricks lying about.
Well, see, and that's the thing too, is, and you're 1,000% right on that, because once you stand down on a police level, well, then if the police aren't going to do it, well,
I'm
then you have to
protecting your
go.
property, but what that's going to do is the rioters are already riled up. You don't need to rile them up anymore. This will rile up the people that aren't protesting. They're going to be like, "Where the fuck are the police? Well, why isn't my property being defended?"
Yeah,
Like I've put up the police 365 days a year, and the only day I actually need them
they're
is
nowhere to be found.
yeah. I think you're in. I mean, I've really got into my head. I've had post-traumatic stress disorder. I've really got it in my head now that this really is civil war for America now. It is. It
See,
is civil war. It's not a protest now. It's not a riot. It's not looting. This is the start of the fall, the collapse of the West. It's not just America. It's the West.
see, here's the thing with me is I agree that that's what they're going for. I think that's the intentions, and like I said, I'm, the area I'm focused on now is this intelligence insurrection activities being coordinated through social media and things like that. But to some extent, like, I also think, like, and this could also be a factor and a part of their plan, is I just think, well, they couldn't pull it off with Trayvon. Well, it didn't work with Hands Up, Don't Shoot. Like, it's to some extent, like, I feel like they've tried this. I feel like, but granted, Obama was in office. They don't have the, the supreme Klan leader, Nazi, supremacist as a Trump in office. So maybe they can actually run it fully this time. I don't know, but I have such a hard time buying, like, the fall of America is gonna be because some dude died after using a counterfeit
Well, no,
$20 bill. Like, god damn it, if that goes down in the history books, we deserve it. Like,
it's not that at all. It was that China was always the model for America, and they're just slowly implementing that model.
well, that is true. That is true that they are
And they've tried
definitely.
it many ways, and most of the time they fuck it up. Like, it's getting ramped up and ramped up. Like, it started off with the carbon, and it went on with the race rioting, and then it was, the refugee crisis, the border crisis, then it was the impeachment, and then it was the corona, and now the corona just fell flat on his ass.
Well, part of why that happened too. My one boss at the restaurant, she has a printout right on her desk, like right on the counter where people eat, because she's kept the restaurant open. Now, granted, she's not making enough business to justify me being there all the time. I just pop in here and there to help her out. And so, yesterday I was there after I helped out. I stuck around for an hour just to hang out with her because she is now on it. Like, she could sit in on a podcast with us now and she would know everything we are talking about and probably be able to add in points. Like, she is doing her research. But she has this document out on the counter that was written and put out last week by Anthony Fauci, where he says explicitly in it the death rate to the coronavirus is right on par with a influenza, with a death rate of like 0.004. And she has
Right, and how many days were killed because they were put on a ventilator, didn't need to be put on a ventilator, and they
and
just had their lungs blew out.
I got into a conversation with my mom because we would argue about some of these things, and I would say, Mom, it's really disheartening that I bring to you breaking news and you discount it, disbelieve it, and dismiss me, and then 2 weeks to a month later, the exact things I was trying to tell you become accepted. Like, Now they
No,
know,
I'm the
like
same
the
as my mum,
ventilators are
because
the
I could.
greatest example because everyone now knows the ventilators were killing people. We knew week one. We knew right from the very start, if you end up on that ventilator, you're not coming off. The ventilators are killing people. I mean, even the things about Trump talking about, light internally, like there's medical research companies that were developing those treatments and then they just banish it from Twitter so that, and that's the other thing, Alex Jones would mention it and it is ramped up because there was a clip of Tucker Carlson that I had to search. I mean, it was probably one of the hardest things for me to find, and it was like a clip from yesterday's news on Tucker Carlson, which is one of the biggest news shows, period, of him saying, we keep hearing trust the experts. Let's look at what these experts are saying, and it's Anthony Fauci being like, yeah, you don't need to wear masks. Masks don't do anything to help. Him saying, it makes me feel so good seeing everyone wear the masks. It's a sign of respect. Or, I mean, it's just him saying one thing and the next week saying another and the next week saying
Yeah, it's
another.
even worse than that. Just to quickly summarize, Fauci sold the goddamn thing to the Wuhan lab. He funded the Wuhan lab, and then his mate Bill Gates set up the WHO, pretty much,
Yeah.
to cover for it.
And the point Tucker was making is just how much faith do we want to put in these people that contradict themselves left and right. Well, what they did is exactly what Alex Jones has repeatedly claimed they do to him. They remove the actual clip of what has been said. They remove the firsthand
Right, yeah.
information, and then everyone else in the media covers it in a misrepresentation so that all you hear is this secondary of you're told what it says and you can't find the actual thing to find out if that's
Just before I
true or not.
forget, this is a useful tip. I'll tell you how to find videos you can't find.
Okay.
What I do is I only learned this the other week. If you know it's on YouTube, don't search YouTube. That's a waste of time. And don't search Google. Go DuckDuckGo and search DuckDuckGo as if you were searching YouTube, and then the YouTube video will show up on DuckDuckGo. It's fucking crazy.
Oh, I bet. Well, because you know what I use.
But that works. I get it all the time. It's like, I know this video. I couldn't describe it any better. Doesn't pick it up. Try and Google, doesn't pick it up. I go DuckDuckGo and it picks up the video that's already in YouTube.
Well, what's interesting.
It's got the exact title. Do you know what I mean? Tucker Carlson says X, Y, Z.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, and first off, I will say, it always.
Which is why Trump is right about shutting down I mean, he's not completely right, but at least he's doing something about shutting down Silicon Valley's big mouth.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things, like, first off, I always think it's funny when anyone, whether it's, musicians fucking, doing dick measuring contests over what software they use, or, I mean, I would get it all the time on my earlier videos. Oh my God, you're using that internet browser? And I mean, to me, I'm like, granted, there's certain areas where I really get my tech stuff, and then in other areas, I'm like, well, whatever one, all I do is type in www dot wherever the fuck I'm trying to go.
Yeah, it's not as if you're using a Microsoft operating system, is it?
Well, yeah, obviously, everyone's using Microsoft or Macintosh or whatever.
Come on.
Well, now, here's the interesting thing. These 2 points I'll make really quick. The founder of Gab points out, and he is so right about this, that the problem isn't even as much Twitter and all of that. He said because the free market could solve those problems, but you have a complete duopoly in the app stores. If you can't get your app approved by Google for Android or Apple for Macintosh, well, then you don't exist. And that's one of the biggest of the gatekeepers. Now, the point I was going to make is, so people would always say, why are you using this browser? Why are you using that browser? The browser I always used, and it's for a completely unrelated thing, I've always just used Microsoft's browser. And the reason for that is their rewards program. Because I have an Xbox and a Microsoft computer, if I use Bing, I get a certain amount of points for searches and all this stuff, and then I get gift cards for them. Like, every month I get to buy 2 movies for just using Microsoft
Yeah, you
things.
can't find what you're fucking searching for, like, kid you?
No, but I can. That's the crazier thing, though. I've seen comparative analyses, and again, it could be because not so many people are using it because everyone's using Firefox and Chrome and all this other
No
stuff.
wonder you're earning so much.
But-
You'll fucking keep changing it.
No, that's the thing they've discovered. They discovered that Bing is actually one of the least censored and manipulated search engines. And it cracked me up when I saw that because I'm like, I'm using this shit just so I can get, my fucking movie collection growing or, buy a DLC for a game. And meanwhile, I'm getting better search results than the people who are coming to me being like, "Oh my god, you use that?" And I'm like, "You're using Google's shit."
Well, there you go,
Like,
folks. That's why the New World News Network research is shit. It's because Jamie's collecting fucking points.
yeah, right.
It fucking works.
Yeah, but at least, yeah, I mean that really, but that should be the tagline, be like, Bing, at least it's not Chrome. Like, yeah, when I saw that, it was funny because I was like, oh man, I thought I was doing this for selfish reasons, and now at least I can be like, well, I'm not as manipulated as if I was using everything you guys are telling me to. Like, so funny. But yeah,
Well, we're
this
still
whole thing.
lockdown over here. We're allowed to like easing it quite a bit, but everyone's loving it here, man. The lockdown. It's insane. It's crazy.
I don't want this to come off extremely disrespectful, but I've always had this innate, when you're growing up in America, especially in the school systems, inner city school systems, when you are taught this anti-American, oh, America's the worst, this and that, and it's given over these reasons of like, well, we don't have universal health care, or we don't have this or this and that. And like it was always really weird to me because I would look at it being like, wait, America was founded out of rejection of these European monarchies and all this other stuff, and then shit would happen, World War One, World War Two, we gotta come in, save the day, and all this.
Russia did.
But you understand what that's getting caught in the weeds.
We brought Americans for a bit of a laugh.
But you still get my overall point. Like, America is called in to help out. I mean, NATO, we're paying the bulk of NATO. Regardless
Yeah, I
of...
think that's what it is. I've always said that it's a triangle of, what do you call them, sovereign states. The Americans are like the military brass. We're like the fraudulent brass because we've got Canary Wharf. That's where all the financial fraud takes place. And then the Vatican's at the top, given their religious approval.
Yeah.
It's a team.
In that regards, definitely.
It's just like Owen Benjamin said with the Princess Diamond. It's like the Grabbler has the big American behind him, big giant.
Yeah.
All the fighting.
But it's one of those things where I always looked at it, I'm like, America is basically plays like Big Brother to the world, and not in the scary Big Brother's watching you way, but in the like, oh, my little brother's being pushed around, let me have to step in and mediate this. Like,
but if you went down the conspiracy route, the problem you got with America, if you want to have a one world government, America's your big problem. And the reason why America's such a big problem is obvious. It's because every household has a gun.
See, and that's...
You're not invading that country anytime soon.
But that's the sort of thing that...
You're not going to be doing it conventional ways. And this is where this unconventional warfare probably stems from. There has to be a psychological war. It has to be mental war. It has to be an information war to create... Like, Alex Jones is a genius coming up with info wars that creates a prison planet.
But, and that's... See, and that's the thing I would always sort of look at it as, where it's like...
You're not militarily ever going to take over America. It has to collapse. You have to collapse it.
Like, I don't want people to sort of misinterpret this because it's really hard to verbalize. But I always looked at Europe, especially through the European Union system. Europe is just a bunch of servile states. Like, they like their big government. They like their socialism in certain programs and every. America is founded on rejection of that. The fundamental difference is so stark that I never understood people being like, we should be more like Europe. And I just look at it as like, wait, you want to go completely backwards? Like, we're the progression away from that. Why do you now think that that is what we should aspire to be? Like,
Well, you are aspiring to do that. That's exactly the same as what you are doing. Exactly the same stuff. You just got different names for it. Like you've got treaties, like these treaty agreements you have with companies, like NAFTA, I guess, is just coming off the top of my head, where you get these North America treaty agreements and trade deals. So it's kind of the same thing.
well, yeah, I mean, for years, the politicians were definitely trying to model things in that manner.
The
Now,
PNAC, that was it, wasn't it? Like the PNAC, was it PNAC?
yeah, that was one of them. And I mean, granted, you need trade agreements. Like, that's not
It's not
a
PNAC, that's Project the New American Century. What was the other one Obama was trying to put through? That
the
giant trade deal.
TPP.
Yeah, that, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I'm not saying trade agreements are the problem, but trade agreements that do X, Y, and Z that are not beneficial to the people are the problem.
Pretty much the European Union summed up, yep.
Yeah. Now, I want to go into this other point that, again, mind-blowing. No More News was doing a video that had a bunch of really good points in it, and one of the points, he talked about Iran enacting BDS. And these news articles were talking about how if Iran follows through and you boycott Israel to the inevitable conclusion, it essentially puts you 50 to 60 years into the past. Every computer has parts made from Israel. Every piece of technology. Israel is it's not Silicon Valley, not China, it's Israel. And then, so from that, he shows...
Yeah, but you do hate Jews, Jamie.
I don't give a shit about Jews. I'm talking about Israel as a political, well,
Yeah,
place.
I know you don't give a shit about them. That's how you ended up hating them. That's where the hate started.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you. Yeah, Gavin McGinnis has made this point, and I've always it's so true. You ever want a wild woman in bed? Find yourself a Jewish girl. That's right up at there. If I had to give 5 life advice pieces that are just like the crystallized ones, that's one of the important ones. Anyway, he shows this clip from the Animatrix. The anime prequel to the Matrix. And I didn't realize that in the canon or lore of the Matrix, the machines are the Jews. Even to the point where the humans and the machines are working together, then they get into a fight. Well, then the machines go and find refuge in the cradle of life, being Israel. So they build up their technological state, which is called Zion, and then they enact military or technological superiority upon the world, and that creates the Matrix system. I mean, I'm not doing it justice. There's lots of more little details and synchronicities, but the Matrix from 2003 has this whole subtext about military technological superiority and supremacy stemming out of Israel, and that is how they asserted dominance and the machines took over the world through Israel. And you're watching that being like, how did the Wachowski sisters lay this all out fucking 15 some odd years beforehand, where now you're looking at Iran and they're basically saying Iran is going to go back to, the 1940s by saying we don't want Israel's tech, basically. So that was something where when I saw that, and it's on a No More News footage at the very end, is one of the final points, that sequence from the Animatrix. but even just the voiceover and the way it's being talked about, it's extremely interesting, like a predictive programming thing.
Yeah.
So
Well, I hope
as
things
long as
calm
there are
down a
no
bit, but
as long as there's no Black Lives Matter protests going on in Israel, I guess you
well,
know.
the thing that I wanted to do for life, since I take the piss out of the Americans all the time, is what I would have done if I was you. I would have brought up the Black Lives Matter protests we had over the weekend in London, and then compare it to what goes on in fucking America.
Why did you have them in London?
Because
That
we had them
worries
pretty
me.
big. They had like their media students, what they call them, like drama students, came out. Bunch of white drama students came out and just started dancing and shit, going Black Lives Matter, and they just pushed a couple of cops over at worst, and that was it.
That's nuts. I mean, it's see, and that's where I get worried about these things because because it really like I understand again, it's a sort of like a subtext issue. America has that sort of racial subtext, but when I see Black Lives Matter shit going on in somewhere like England or France, or I mean, granted, you guys have imported in a ton of black people, but my mind just goes to like, y'all ain't got no niggas. Why would shit be popping off over there?
I just
Like,
don't see if I was a black person, I'd be like, why are we treated like black people are just a special needs group then, are they?
well, you know what?
Is that what we're saying?
I watched
Isn't
this.
that like more racist than anything
No, you're
Gavin
you're
McInnes
completely right.
used
Hold
to
on, let me.
say?
I watched. I don't know if you know. There's this guy Vaush or Vosh or Vaush or whatever.
Rouge.
Huh?
Rouge.
No, not him. Different guy. This one is VAUGSH, and he's a commie YouTuber, streamer, and I think he's the only commie that talks to people. I think he's from Canada too. He did a debate.
Surprised.
He did a debate with the guy who goes by Actual Justice Warrior, and it's funny because they're doing a debate, and then Devin Tracy of Atheism is Unstoppable is live streaming it and doing commentary. This guy Vaush was, I mean, you would have points where Actual Justice Warrior would be like, well, the problem with black communities, and this is going on, and this and that, and Vaush would make these excuses to the point of like, well, I am not being hyperbolic. The amount of times he said lead in the water. Let me tell you, every black person I know, if they heard that, that would be more offensive than a white person walking up to them and being like, "Yeehaw, nigger, nigger, nigger." I mean, the idea that you are saying, like, think of it like this: if there's a drive-by in Chicago where a little black girl ends up in a crossfire and is killed, and then you have this white commie from Canada saying, well, you gotta understand, lead in their water, ergo, no one's responsible for the death of this little black girl. I mean, the level of excuses this guy was making puts black people even lower than special needs. I mean, it was the most infuriating thing because he looks at black people with such inferiority. And I mean, it's like mind-boggling. Mind-boggling how this guy is thinking he's standing up for people, but then being like, yeah, but the lead in their water makes them into savages, basically. And, like, as if they have no agency whatsoever. Like, they can, like, not even that they can't choose right or wrong, or they haven't been taught right or wrong. Like, he's basically saying, well, even if they knew right from wrong, they're too retarded from the lead in their water to even think straight. So, ergo, white people need to come in and do everything for them. I mean, I was like, what the fuck? What am I watching? Like,
To be honest, I've turned into a weird kind of racist because I'd say 95% of black people now in England I avoid like the fucking plague. And the reason I avoid them isn't because I don't like them, it's because I know how strong the propaganda is, and 90% of the relationships I have end up in your races are, we live in a racist country, and I'm just sick to death of it.
yeah.
The only friends I have are black, which is what makes it weird. but they're all from Africa or from like Caribbean, and you just never get that problem at all.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's funny too? Again,
And I make the worst jokes ever, and they're just like rolling laughing.
you know what's funny?
They're like, this is hilarious.
I saw Colin Flattery and Devin Tracy again from AIU doing an interview, and they
There
both.
doesn't seem to be any middle ground. You know what I mean? It's either the Africans
Yeah. No, you're
seem
right.
pretty cool as fuck, or if not, they're not really black anymore. They seem like they were born in this country and they've got a massive chip on their shoulder, and it's just risky for me to be in a relationship. The risks are too high.
Exactly.
Because anything I say,
It's no different than the
can be,
whole
like,
Me
used
Too
against me
thing.
so badly.
It's no different than the whole Me Too thing with men not wanting to work with women anymore. It's too risky.
Yeah, and once you call me a racist, all my rights have gone out the window. All my rights to safety, all my expectations of safety. Because it is perfectly okay to punch a racist. Obviously, that's okay to do. I'm being serious. It's okay.
No, you are. Look at how
If
the
you
media
call someone a
responded to
racist,
Richard
I'm
Spencer.
fucked.
Yeah, look at how the media responded to Richard Spencer. It is okay to punch a racist. You know, and I
Right,
made.
what I was doing with John, we were doing a meme where I had my knee on his throat. Like, that's the sort, because it's hilarious.
You know, and I made this
But you
point.
couldn't do that with like 99% of the people I know. It's only because he's from like just outside the Zimbabwe area that it's just like hilarious.
Well, and I made this point to my mom last night when I was red pilling her on these protests, where I said, Mom, what could happen to another white person that you would feel that's one of my people enough to go into the streets, to set a fire to something, to do what I said? Nothing. I said, because white people don't see white people as their people. I said, but the problem is these black people have been taught and trained to see each other as, that's my people, this is my group. I said
I don't remember America burning because a white dude died ever.
no, because white people don't see each other as a collective. There is no camaraderie, collective unity. I mean, we've basically been trained that that is the worst thing you could ever do. That's that one-way racism thing where it's like it's racist for a white person to look at other white people as their people, to have that racial unity in any sort, because that's the thing. The media, according to the media and academia and all of that with their redefinitions, racism can only come from white people, and it only comes from them having a us versus them mentality. And I told my mom this. I said, this is the problem, is you have a war brewing essentially of a us versus them mentality. And I said, and the them is white people, and the white people don't even see themselves as a group. We see ourselves as individuals. My them is good people, is caring people, is creative people, is productive people. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin and everything else like that. I said, but all of these other groups, well, their them is people with the same skin color. Bad people, good people, criminal people, productive people. They don't even care. The only thing you have to have is the same skin color. I said, so...
Well, are we going to see like a merge from, it's not ISIS attacks anymore, but we're going to see like just white folk getting randomly wiped out once the lockdown's eased? These revenge attacks, it's just random attacks. I can see cops just being randomly
It's already
shot.
happening. Did you see the footage from that nursing home? The
Yeah.
fucking guy who said he had COVID ended up in one of the nursing homes, and then he's recording himself. I mean, think about that.
He did it to a few patients, yeah. It's not
But
just
he
that one dude.
recorded himself. Like, I mean, that is the level of feeling justified and empowered to do this, that they would fucking engage in this criminal activity, videotape it, broadcast it themselves. Like, they think they're fighting the good fight by doing things that anyone should just look at as, fuck, regardless of your politics, what does some fucking old white dude in a nursing home have to do with anything? I mean, even if I want to buy into your power plus privilege, this guy might not even have the privilege of wiping his own ass. What do you think you're doing by knocking him out? Like, I mean, if you told me lead in the paint for that guy, maybe I'd entertain it, but this shit is stupid.
Because that's what the biggest fear is what happens once a shootout starts between a cop and a either way. Like, what happens if a cop shoots a black protester? What happens then?
Yeah.
You're going to be some kind of a crazy shooting war.
Well, and that really goes to what you're saying about the stand down in the first place sets a really fucked up tone for everything
Yeah, and when the
thereafter.
lockdown does end, and if the protests do end, all the cops are going to be on edge whenever they pull over a black dude. Way more on edge.
Well, they already
They are.
are. That's why I
They're
like.
going to be on more on edge.
That's why,
You're gonna see
again,
more fucked up instances.
I really don't like ascribing motive either which way, but that is why I would say, and I think it's just a probability thing.
Yeah,
I don't
police
think
do
the
numbers,
white
they
guy,
know the
I
numbers,
don't think
so.
the white guy planned on killing that black guy because the repercussions of it, like this is again the non-reality of it. Most cops, I mean, I again, I have a neighbor who's
I don't agree with you. I think he snuffed him out, mate. If it is real, he snuffed him out on purpose.
I don't think so. I think he was looking to assert
He knew that
dominance
was
over
gonna take
him. I don't think it because here let me put it to you like this. What does a cop benefit by killing anyone? The only
He could
reason
have just been on steroids and just high as fuck on speed and just
I've had friends
just
on steroids.
madness.
I don't buy that. I don't. I mean, because here's the thing is if on a strict cost benefit analysis, you don't benefit anything. You lose everything and the benefit is none. I mean, that guy lost his job, lost his pension, he's now arrested, and his wife divorced him. He has nothing. He has nothing now. And all the cops know this. That's why they do these studies, and they're like, cops are actually far less likely to shoot a black person. Again, if there was a personal thing there, I mean, here's the thing is, I really do believe that he was there to assert dominance over him, that he was looking to exert his authority over that guy, that he was trying to put him in his place. And as they said, the guy had pre-existing health conditions that
Well, it's
then
right
led
next to an
to
exhaust pipe as well. I'm not sure that exhaust pipe would have helped much.
the what?
Well, I imagine it was right next to the police exhaust pipe. So if the engine was on as well.
Yeah, I mean, and
That's
see, and that's
better.
the thing is, from what the autopsy report has shown, is that there were a combination of factors that just led to this going sideways. Like, I'm not saying the cop was in the right. I think the cop was looking to do harm, but I don't think he intended it to go to death. Like, I really, I don't. I think he was looking to rough him up and to fucking put him in his place or whatever, you know, was going through the cops' heads. Killing him, I don't think was the intention because,
Did you get any impression that they might have, I'm just saying might have been mic'd up?
that the cops had mics on them.
That Floyd definitely, it seemed like Floyd had a mic.
Interesting.
But then it does look like, I don't know if you could act that, he's definitely passed out. But the way the camera moves, you don't really see what's going on, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Because when the camera moves, that's a great editing point. That's a great point to where you would edit to a different cut. You could easily put it off. The way it was filmed, like I know I sound like a big head. I've done so much like kind of production, sort of helped write magic shows. All the cuts are right where you would need them to kind of hide what was. It's so weird, and you don't see really what's going on behind the car. The whole video is very strange.
Now that I definitely thought when I first saw it, I was like, this is odd. Like,
the panning shots are very strange.
well, and even the fact that it's like, why does it pick up at him being on the ground? Like, how did he get to on the ground? Like, and I've heard other people make that point where it's like, it seems like there's some scenes we're missing. Like, why don't we have the whole footage? I mean, obviously the cops had body cams. Why do we not have unedited footage of this? So, yeah, I think there's definitely something suspicious going on with that.
Especially when people go, well, the cops wouldn't stage it. Explain Umbrella Man.
What was that? You're kind of cutting in and
People go,
out.
oh, they didn't stage it. It's like, well, explain Umbrella Man.
Yeah, still not catching it.
Don't know, maybe I'm dead now. Hang on.
No, no, now I hear you. Now you're good.
I was saying, like, when people say, oh, they wouldn't stage it, well, explain Umbrella Man, explain all the bricks, explain the cops destroying their own car, explain them
Yeah.
leaving the station.
Well, see, and here's the other thing that's interesting about it. Now, let's put it.
But you do get corrupt cops. That cop could be a corrupt cop. And
No,
they're
no.
like,
Let's take a whole nother angle on this, right? Let's say you're in a police unit and you've been contacted. Again, this is heavy Democrat area. Now, another point that's been pointed out about these: a lot of your places these riots are picking up in are swing states. So there does seem to be an implication that a lot of these activities, and again, it's through what Millie Weaver said too, also leads to this implication that it is a rallying for votes and for, Democrat operatives, whatever. So let's say you're in this swing state and they're like, listen, we can't afford to have this state go red. And because the coronavirus, it's looking like it's happening because people realize government is overstepping its bounds. So you end up with a handful of cops, let's say 3, because I think that's how many were there, 3 or 4. They get pulled in with some group and they're told, hey, listen, we're trying to spark an event. We're trying to do this, and that. We need to set up a scene that involves you guys and a act that, is happening against a black person. We want it to lead to their death, but we don't want you to kill them because that way it creates muddied waters and all this other stuff.
And it's only you that's going to go to jail. We're going to give you some help. We're going to give you 3 colleagues to come down.
Yeah.
The finish is these colleagues, they're training. They're training cadets.
And then,
so when this goes to court, they can't face charges because they're under your wing. And whatever you say, they have to do, so they're covered.
Yeah, and we'll have it where
you're a cop and you're training, you're not guilty of what your colleague does. But if you're a fully trained cop and you don't step in, then you're responsible. I think those other cops are going to get off.
Oh yeah,
because they're recruits.
And he might
and
even
they don't have the jurisdiction to pull them off.
Well, and because it's in his training, the main guy might even get off, or he might get off because the coroner thing says his death didn't revolve around neck injuries or whatever. So anyway, let's just say in this hypothetical that we are, playing on as a mental exercise, that this guy is approached by a political operative and all of this, and then they say to him, hey, by chance, do you know any black guys that you could trust to play the role of the victim in this scenario? And granted, they'll have to, move out of the area, basically go into like a witness protection, but we'll pay them off and this and that, and they'll be fine, but there will be this public figure and then they'll need a new identity. And what if he goes, hey, there was that black guy I did security with for 10 years, and he was a pretty good guy. I think I could trust him. Like, again, because they knew each other for so long that, again, there could be something in there where it's like, I mean, that's just, again, we're just playing around with this idea that the whole thing is a setup to trigger the event, call it problem, reaction, solution. But it's, again, the fact that they knew each other for so long shows a, it throws a wrench in the whole, well, he's a black man, white man, ergo racist, like, narrative. Like, I would think it would be far more likely that they were like, we need to stage an event. Who do you know that you can trust to play this role? And he's like, oh yeah, hey, my buddy George, what is he doing? Oh, he's just doing videos banging bitches. I'm sure he'd love to be an actor in this
that
one.
is the same cop in Boston bombing. They're like, do you think you can pull it off? It's like, well, we pulled off Boston, for God's sake.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, too...
They pulled off the Boston firecracker, you cannot deny. It's nonsense. Cannot deny it. Can't.
The other thing, too...
You can't set it up. Well, explain the Boston firecracker, then.
Well, I mean, that was...
All these legs are falling off people and no one's bleeding out.
Yeah.
Explain, yeah?
Yeah, that was a whole, live production. It's like just done in front of everyone. Yeah, what they can pull off is, I mean, even there are people from
I think they filmed it before the lockdown as well.
there are people from a half hour away from me getting arrested in Minnesota, and people are like, how did they get there? Why did they get they're being bussed in. Like, this is,
Yeah.
again, this is operatives. This is not a organic event by any means. And here's the other thing though, where it gets difficult. Obviously, things are compartmentalized because you have some of these government figures that in one breath will say, the voice of the protesters is legitimate, and it should be heard, and basically taking an appeasement route on one breath, and then in the next breath they're like, most of the people arrested in these protests are not from here. They are from elsewhere. They are coming into the city to cause disruption and, provocateur and all this other stuff. And it's like, you just sort of look at it and you're like, okay, so even the governor doesn't know what's going on. Like, this is organized over their heads, basically. And it's into that idea that the NSA and these private contracted intelligence agencies have this predictive modeling systems with all their AIs where they can look and say, all right, well, we know that governor is a hard leftist, so we know regardless of what happens, he will feel sympathy towards this, he will do this and that, and he will, whatever. So if we factor that into the script, even if he points out that they're all from out of town, what does it matter? Because he sides with this tear down the system nonsense. CNN, which has been a promoter of all of this, like we discussed earlier, okay, well, now you look at CNN being victimized of it. Now they get to say, oh, poor us, we're just trying to give you guys a voice, and, this and that. Like, it's all of it seems very staged.
We're subject to police brutality too. We got arrested.
Yeah, this is what we get for showing solidarity, this and that. Yeah, we're now victims of it. Yeah,
and we're risking our lives to bring it to you.
Yep.
I think America's fucked, man. I know you don't hear it, but I think it is the apocalypse. It's the best apocalypse ever. I think America really is in civil war. I don't know what to make of Trump. I'm not really that hopeful for him at all. I think it's been a disappointment.
I don't know. I think some of the things
the only thing I'm going to say about Trump, I'll just sum it up quickly. You've been put on lockdown by him. He hasn't come clean about the corona. He hasn't at all. He hasn't been straight with the public about it at all.
Here's the thing, though, that again I will disagree
It's still
with.
got Fauci in
Trump never put me on lockdown. I was put under lockdown by Cuomo way before Trump ever. I live in New York. That's the thing. I mean,
yeah, but you see what I mean.
There are here's the problem with saying Trump put you under lockdown. Okay, well, there were states that were never under lockdown. So why did these states disobey Trump?
You've now got the biggest riot we've seen. You can have an economic collapse, the biggest.
I mean, and this is the sort of issue. Just respond to that.
But why can't he just be honest to the public about what is going on? Like, this is a war situation with China. Like, we're in so deep, and they've infected every part of my country.
I've heard him saying that recently. I mean, he's done press conferences where he's talked about that with China, and I mean them expelling spies and all. I mean, the some of the bills that he's passed in the past 2 weeks.
What is Fauci still doing now?
I think what he's doing with Fauci is a keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer thing.
It sounds insane. Why isn't he gone? Why isn't he fired?
Because you want to know why? Because the moment he fires Fauci, there's grounds for another impeachment trial. That simple.
How?
Because they're already pushing for it. The Democrats are already planning another impeachment trial over how Trump failed the coronavirus response.
Yeah, well, maybe he should take that impeachment on them.
So if they have their one guy, and that's the reality of it. Fauci, when Nancy Pelosi comes out and says, listen to the expert, singular expert, she is saying, listen to Fauci. Fauci is the only one that they think has the qualifications to speak on these matters. So if he is the only one that the media is going to and will respect and listen to and whatever, is it better to take that dog off the leash and let him roam free, or is it better to keep him on a leash nearby? I really think that's what's going on with Fauci, because if you look, there's certain instances where Fauci got sidelined for a while. There was a good 3 weeks where we didn't see Fauci, and now Fauci has only been brought back now that how nothing the coronavirus is. He's now only been brought back now that he's admitting reality. Like, that's really what I think it is, where it's like, it's now at a point where Fauci has been rendered useless. So having him stand behind Trump just makes Trump look as if he is right to the eyes of the media. That's the problem. You have to look at it from the perspective of the enemy, like how they look at it. That's the only way to make sense of the Fauci thing, I realized, is looking at it through the perspective of the opportunistic media.
The one I always say is Hillary's still nowhere near jail. Nowhere near. It just looks like a disaster. It looks like a fucking disaster, man.
But the
You
problem,
had lockdown, you have
the
had
problem
riots,
I
you've got
have,
the economic collapse. Epstein is still like a mystery. The Las Vegas shooting was the first big warning bell for me.
Paul,
The Las Vegas shooting was an absolute mess.
the easiest way for me to put this is, if I were to take your list of all of your complaints about Trump, and I would say, okay, how could he resolve this? Then you're saying, well, why isn't he taking the NDAA and the Patriot Act and just going full board? Why isn't he black bagging Hillary Clinton? Why is it?
I can't say what I'm saying for him to resolve it, and I haven't said what he could do to resolve it.
What do you mean?
I said one thing, which would be fire Fauci and try and get charges on him, regardless of impeachment.
But
he should be fired and charged. End off.
And I agree with that, and I believe
I don't
that
understand how that's not happening.
because the dust hasn't settled yet. I mean, look at Comey was fired.
How far does it have to go with Fauci until he's gone?
Until there's no reason for him to be speaking on the news. That's what he did with Comey. He waited until Comey was no longer doing the news cycles, where there was nothing left for him to talk about, and then he said, "You're out of here." That's what I'm telling you, because oh my God, the idea that he fired Fauci now would give the media such a good weapon to use against him. I mean,
well, we're not going to agree on Fauci. Let's fuck the Fauci.
Okay.
Do you not get worried? Do you not get worried when you hear Trump say we need vaccines at warp speed?
Not at all. Not because I listened. I listened to that press conference. That's not what he said at all. That's fake news. That is fake news. He said right out in that interview. He said
more to what he said.
He said
people that want the vaccine.
Exactly.
We'll get the military to deliver it.
And then here's the other thing. But here's the other thing.
My worst nightmare.
No, because again, look at the context of it. Look at the context.
Can we have Obama back?
America Medical Manufacturing. You got to watch Millie Weaver's video on it. American Medical Manufacturing is elsewhere. What was the biggest problem when this pandemic started? 90-something% of our medical stuff is made in China. Operation Warp Speed is not warp speed to a vaccine. Operation Warp Speed is warp speed to bring American medical manufacturing back to the country. In that press conference, he says, we have 500 therapeutics being developed and some vaccines. Now, here's the other thing. If Trump doesn't, it's basically he's trying to cut Bill Gates off at the pass. Let me put it to you like this. Let's say
that could be the case. I'm just saying, I do agree with you. I'm just saying it's a very worrying thing to hear.
It is and it isn't.
It's fucking worrying. Because if you're run on this, We're all you're all
Hey,
fucked.
and I said on our last
We're all
podcast, and
fucked.
I've always had this position. If Trump does come out and starts pushing that vaccine and singularly saying the vaccine is the answer, the same way some of these other people are, all my support will go out the window.
But a lot of money's going to these vaccine companies and research, which is just as insane.
But a lot of money is also going to all the therapeutics and everything else. And he even says in the thing, a lot of people don't want a vaccine. And for them, we'll develop this. And here's the other thing that's the reality of it. Again, he's playing a game of politics. If half your base is for vaccine and half is not, why not offer both? Because you're appeasing both sides. I mean, to some extent, politics is a matter of walking that tightrope. I mean, again, the place where it gets very worrisome for me is mandatory. And this is the point I was going to make before, where, and I don't know, it could just be a difference between, you know, me living in America and you living in England. Sometimes I have the feeling that I wouldn't even say are ignorant, but I think you underestimate the sort of local, federal, and state separations. Because a lot of the lockdown thing, I mean, you even had states where the state came out and said, we're removing the lockdown, but then it got passed down to local municipalities where you then have a county that's on lockdown and the next one isn't. So, and that's where I get worried with a lot of the complaints about Trump, because I see where it's like, I look at it and I say, well, if you wanted him to do this, then we're now in the position of saying, I want the president to have dictatorial powers. We're now in a position where we're saying, I'd be up in arms if Obama was doing this, but I want my guy to have that power. And
Yeah, you might have a point there, but do you not think it's also ridiculous? Moving to another point, is it not ridiculous that he can't just say the simple thing of Q's a load of bullshit or Q is someone in it? I mean, would that not solve a lot of nonsense that we're having to put up with?
you know, the Q thing is interesting, and I like that you brought it up.
The
So
silence on the Q is ridiculous.
well, because here's the thing, and it's again, I probably wouldn't have this perspective if I didn't see Vox Day say, I think Q is good for morale. I think Q is good for, you know, sort of rallying and stuff like that. Again, my boss, who's now very much into these conspiracy theories and, you know, didn't know the corruption bled into the medical industry as much as it does and all that. There are some good documentaries going around that are very
Telling people to sit back and watch the plan. Just sit back and watch it.
Yes and no. Because and you know, again, I think the trust it's see, here's the thing is, the trust the plan thing, I understand the danger of it being a sort of slogan for complacency and sitting idly by.
Well,
But
Lisa Cochrane has gone very quiet, hasn't she, since there's been no arrest? Like, I've not heard a peep
who?
out of her for about a good month.
But here's the thing
Is it because she's got egg on her face?
who?
Lisa Crokin, whatever her name is.
I don't know. I haven't seen much from her, but I've seen other documentaries. Like there's one, something the Cabal. I don't know if it's exposing the Cabal or the fall
I think
of
I know
the
which
Cabal.
one you mean, yeah.
But my boss had showed me that one, and I mean, there were things in that, like, let me tell you, remember when we were doing all the Podesta stuff, and there's the painting of the little boy tied up in that pool with his arms, like, above his head.
Oh, yeah.
He's got that very slim, pointy nose, and, the hair in this documentary. Now, 90% of the stuff I knew, because, you know, we do what we do, and covered Pizzagate and all that stuff. But they brought out that pool looks like one that's in a Vanderbilt castle. You put a picture of that little boy side by side with Anderson Cooper, and you would think it was a portrait painted of him. Like, and when they made that correlation, or like, this sort of looks like, you know, people think that's a Vanderbilt pool. This looks like one of the Vanderbilt boys, you know. Is it? Maybe. Who knows? you know, that I looked at and I was like, oh my god, that's scary, like, similarities between the two. Um, so it's, you know, when I see, it's weird because again, I completely get your concern with this trust the plan thing, but then I'm also seeing QAnon inspire people to look into these things, to make documentaries, to expose it, to share the info, where it's like, I have to ask myself, my concern is people finding this information and just trusting the plan and going hands off. But is that what they're actually doing? Is anyone coming
Yeah.
across this information and actually just sitting back? Or are they finding this information and engaging in it and spreading it and all of that? So,
Well, it takes a lot of pressure off Trump, doesn't it?
yeah,
As to why he hasn't done anything. I mean, it's kind of handy for him.
I mean, I like I said, I'm very mixed on that because I do see more and more people finding Q related information, but then becoming essentially little info warriors and engaging to the point where the whole Q thing is sort of secondary because it's not as much the, you know, messages and decoding, and they're not caught up in that. They're caught up, like, because they're almost getting third hand, like, oh, someone saw a Q thing and they deciphered it, and here's this info I found related to it, and then they're like, oh, well, you know, did you know? I mean, my boss at work is talking to me about adrenochrome. Like, what the fuck? What, like, I mean, never could I have imagined a few years ago when I'd be like, oh, do you know about the deep state? And she's like, deep state? What's a deep state? And now she's like, they're drinking the blood of babies. And I'm like, holy shit, like, what is happening here? Like, so and you know, again, I'll say this could just be personal bias because of situations like that going on, but I find it hard to take a position of being like, oh, he said trust the plan, this is all bad, when I'm seeing people being woken up close and personal by slightly Q related, you know, documentaries or exposés and stuff like that. I mean, I do think that trust the plan thing gets a little bit dangerous, and I do think it creates a bit of a overconfidence. Like, it's not, you can't think trust the plan means this is going to be easy or that this is just
It's
going
going
to
to be
happen.
hard for someone that's never heard of Pizzagate or Q to wake them up by saying, hey, you should read Q, though, right? They're going to be like, what? No.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean,
So it's going to make a lot of people just look insane.
yeah, I agree with you on that. But like I said, I've been really blown away by this Millie Weaver stuff. Like, I didn't understand the Inspector General problem until last night. And for anyone who's unaware, Inspector Generals are basically the people that whistleblowers are supposed to be able to turn to expose corruption, negligence, mishandling of resources, and anything related to those things. So that's
There is some good news from Trump that you haven't thought about. One thing I was really shocked about the rioters and protests was I didn't hear much anti-Trump rhetoric at all.
yeah. I was kind of surprised
Like,
about that
at all.
too. Well,
In
and
fact, I didn't really see any.
you know what the thing is though, and we can look at that like, is that a pro or is it a con? Because part of it is you know, that begs the question, well, what is their rhetoric? And their rhetoric is tear it down far beyond Trump. Like,
Yeah.
that might be the worrying thing, where it's like, you know, it's like they're not even like, oh, you know, tear it down, take out Trump, put in Biden. They're like, fucking tear down the presidency, the White House, the cops, that just all of it goes down. And then the system they want in its place. Like, and it's like, I see these videos, like, I don't know if it was, oh, who's the, Samantha Hernandez? the Hispanic chick that does a lot of on the ground footage with Owen and Schroyer. She was interviewing some like pink haired dude at the Capitol in Austin or somewhere, and he's basically saying, well, you know, the best thing you can do is join up with different movements. And at first he was throwing me off because he was like, join up with movements that support self-governance. And I was like, self-governance? Is there a big libertarian faction in these protests? What's going on here? And then, you know, piqued my interest, and the next thing you know, he's like, yeah, self-governance, join up with communist organizations, communist
man.
And
they got the action plan.
yeah, and that was the thing that was so mind-boggling, and I felt so bad, is because I'm looking at it and I'm like, if this person innately wants self-governance, you should be like, these are the applications where I think that sort of horseshoe theory or whatever can be applicable, where it's like, this person is basically being sold something that it isn't. Like, for some reason, he obviously wants self-governance, and he doesn't want people relying on the system, but he's been told that communism is that? How does that work? Like, you know, and it's almost like you just wish you could go to him and be like, no, if this is what you're looking for, that product is the opposite. What you really want is small government libertarianism, constitutional conservatism, in order to have more self-governance. Like, that's, you know, self-governance is private property, Second Amendment, all of that. Like, it is the American, like, but they've been taught that it's the complete opposite. They have been taught that America was founded as a top-down, exploitative, I mean, they've basically been taught America from its founding is how you and me look at communism. That it is just dictatorial, exploitative, you are put in your place, and all of this other shit. And it's one of those things where it's like, you just start to wonder, like, how have you been mind-fucked into this?
I think I would be if I'd been born any later than I had been.
Yeah. I mean, you know, one of the things, like I was saying, you know, in the Atheism is Unstoppable and Colin Flattery interview, like, one of the things they both said is, you know, how it's interesting that the people who feel no white guilt are always white people that were born and raised around black people. And the ones that feel the most guilty are the ones that have the least interaction with them. And I sort of question sometimes where I'm like, if I wasn't born into a ghetto black city, basically, I'd probably buy into some of it, you know, because I think I am a compassionate person and things like that. But I've also been sort of hardened to the realities of the hood and stuff like that. And I have enough black friends that look at this shit and are like, I mean, they call it niggerdom. That's what they would look at these riots and be like, that's a bunch of niggerdom. Like, that shit is stupid. Like, that's, you know, and you know, you very quickly realize that you know, as much as we may want to look at America and be like, oh, well, there's this us versus them and this racial division and stuff, there's divisions within the DNC's coalition of diversity, and there's divisions within the black community. Black girl that calls me for my mental health thing, talking to me for 20 minutes the other night about light-skinned and dark-skinned girls having beef with each other over one thinking they're prettier than the next one, you know. And then there's the divisions of black people that just want to run their lives and have their businesses and all of that, and then these fucking hood rats that just want to tear the shit down and are willing to burn down a black-owned business because they've been told the problem's capitalism or the man or, you know, whatever. And it's like, you can't look at any of it as a whole because there are divisions within all of it.
Well, that's not why they burnt it down. The reason they burnt it down was because the media told them to do it, and the police said, we ain't gonna do shit if you do.
See, I wouldn't even take it as far as the media told them to do it. I think what you have is you have someone in one of these organizations, whether it's BML or Sunrise, whatever, or I mean, there was in the Millie Weaver clip, there was a thing that, I mean, remember when you'd buy a CD and you'd look at the back of it and you'd have like the emblems of this record label and that record label and the subsidiary label and Warner Brothers, and you'd see all the little emblems at the bottom. That's what it looked like. So it's a conglomeration of all of these organizations, and I think what you have is you just have one high-level person with basically a hit list that is like,
well, that gets me onto my big
oh
point.
yeah, hit the
That's why I wanted
AutoZone,
to
hit the police, hit the town hall, hit that one.
No, because what's going to happen is now Trump's declared Antifa a terrorist organization. It's going to go after domestic people that probably didn't really do that much damage. And George Soros is still going to be running around like a fucking lunatic.
See, I don't know.
It's not going to be a war on Antifa, is it? It's not. Well, trying to go after the people actually funding it and actually getting the money there.
See, that's...
It's not. It's just going to be like dirty little kids that...
See, I don't know, because my impression is the actual inverse of that. I think...
It's not going to treat it like we're meant to treat ISIS, and like anyone who has anything to do with them's fucked.
No, let me put it to you like this.
No.
When police go after a drug organization, are they concerned with the people nickel and diming on the street? Or do they cut deals with the people nickel and diming to try to move their way up the ladder?
They don't move their way up the ladder because that's why they won't legalize drugs, because they're the ones distributing it. So if they legalize drugs, they're going to have to make up that money elsewhere.
I'm not, I'm not talking...
They can't go up the ladder. Of course they don't go up the ladder. That'd be insane.
Let me put it like, if
because they're going to end up arresting Bill Clinton or something, aren't they? And they're not even going to be like halfway up the ladder. Do you know what I mean?
Yes and no.
2 steps up, there's Clinton. 1 more step.
Because here's the way I could sort of sideline that is saying, I'm asking you about drug dealing, and you're now talking about shipping, manufacturing, and distribution. I'm talking because again, here's the difference. I'm saying when police go after drug dealers, and now you're talking about internationalism, you're talking about stuff that involves federal government, and it's again those separations that are, for better or worse, they're there. So again, it's a compartmentalized thing where it's, yeah, obviously the police going after the drug problem in their local area, eventually if it goes up the ladder to Bill Clinton, they can't do anything about that. My point is, though, is when police go after a drug problem in their area, they don't want the nickel and dimers that are doing the street deals. They want the person supplying the nickel and dimers. They want the person supplying that person. Now, maybe there's a person bringing it in from another country that has to be military or something like that.
No, I don't think it goes that far. You know what I'm saying? Because the little scallywag that they do go after will just get replaced within 5 seconds, and then they'll stick him in a private prison.
And that's why they don't go after them, though. That's what I'm saying, is your nickel and dimers generally get cut deals to try to get a bigger fish where the charges will stick. So again, I'm not saying it will go all the way up to George Soros, but it might at least go to his squad of lawyers that show up out of nowhere when any of these Antifa people are arrested.
I don't know who their names are, so I'm not an American, but I can show you senators holding up. Not senators, like people that are running states that are holding Antifa paraphernalia up on their Twitter.
Yeah.
So nothing can happen to them.
I don't know. I think if anything, and this is again the thing with the law.
People that bust him in, for example, should be high on that list. You won't hear about them.
And that's what but that's what I'm saying is, no, I think those are the ones we will hear about. I don't think it will go all the way to the top, but I don't think it's just going to be the bottom level. I think
either they just get the people busting in the people, I will say, okay, I'm wrong on that. But it won't happen. You won't go higher than some like kid that looks ridiculously retarded.
See, I don't know. If I were to guess, because again, it has to do with the federal government. The federal government can't come in and just arrest bottom level citizens like that. It's not the way the
Well, they
levels
can
of
now if
it.
they're deemed terroristic, can't they?
I guess, but it's
That's the whole point of labeling them a terrorist.
no, it's not. That's not, because here's the
It's gonna
problem with
come
that.
after them.
If someone's throwing a Molotov into a window of somewhere, there's already a large fucking list of crimes
No,
you can
that's
hit them with.
Bullshit, you know it, because you could just use normal laws to go after them.
Exactly.
You
No,
wouldn't
you
need to
just
make up-
you're
you
making the
wouldn't have
point
to
I just
make up
said.
terrorist laws.
You're making the point I just said. If it's just some dude throwing a Molotov into a window, you can go after them for all of the crimes related to the
It's
crime
exactly
they just.
why I'm worried about Trump saying, "Hey, Antifa are terrorists." It's like, yeah, I hate Antifa, but
I think what's going to happen, and again, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to go to the top of the ladder. Do I think it's going to end up with George Soros's elderly ass in jail? No, probably not. I don't. My confidence isn't that high. I do think, though, it's not going to be directed at the ground level, because he'll just say, let the cops deal with them because they're breaking laws in their local areas. But I want the federal government able to step in and investigate them and find out who's organizing them. Who's buying their brand new $150 batons and distributing them? Who is funding this? And then I think that you will have an attack at the mid-level. The organizers, the ones that are planning this and bussing them and this and that. And I think it will end up there. And then the hopes will be that enough damage will be caused there that the masterminds up above it will say, all right, we are now starting to end up in the firing line. We better step back because the only next place to go up the ladder is us. That's my
I
hope.
think if I was in America right now, my only plan would be like how to escape.
But
I
here's
honestly think it's on the, like, I know it's not really nice. I really think it's like this is the fall. I can't see a turnaround. I really can't.
But here's the thing about it, and this is why I don't look at this as an America problem, is that everything you're seeing is in like 10 out of 50 states. I mean, that's the reality of it. Like,
I don't know,
like it's almost like
UK,
it's
but
almost a coastal problem. All of these issues
it's
that
like
are happening,
Move forward 10 years.
all of the
into
things
this
happening are on the
in, like, 2
perimeters.
weeks.
Like, let me put it like that. Everything that's happening, and it's really weird thinking about it like this. Everything that's happening is on a sort of perimeter of the country. It's not in the middle of the country whatsoever. It's
No, it's not.
New York, Florida,
No, it's
California.
not.
What do
No,
you
it's
mean?
not. No, because that you're right if you just look at it at the one aspect of it being protesting, but it's not. You've got all these things and it just spiraling out of control.
Like let me put it like this. They're already running pieces saying, why was coronavirus worse in the areas that voted for Hillary? And now they're running.
Because the damage is done now. It wasn't about the coronavirus. It was always about the aftermath. So once you hit to the point of aftermath, why does it matter how you get there? You might as well just be honest about it and say, hey, yeah, we got the numbers totally wrong. Sorry. But now we've got economic depression to look forward to. Yay!
No, but this is the point I'm making. First off, the numbers are a mess. So let's not even pay attention to the numbers. Let's just look at the action. You had certain areas, 4 states in specific, where you had
None of this matters. What matters is what the aftermath was. How does it matter how you got there?
I agree with that,
Once
but
it's set in that there's going to be an economic collapse, who's going to give a shit? how you
what
got there?
economic Paul, let me make my point, because everything you're saying is
Okay.
nothing basically. You had 4 states that put in these rules like, we're going to send infected people to nursing homes. Regardless of your numbers, this coronavirus nonsense kills elderly people the same way the flu was. So you have these places that, yeah, they're cooking the books, they're trying to kill people, so their numbers are nonsense. Those 4 places that with the highest death tolls in coronavirus are Democrat areas. It's what, Minnesota, Detroit, or whatever state Detroit and all that shit's in, New York and California. New York and California are your 2 Democrat stronghold areas. So now you've had it where all the places that had the highest coronavirus deaths related to sending people to nursing homes and all that, those are the places where the riots are now the worst.
Jamie, no one cares about this part. What they care about is what the aftermath bits. Let me explain.
But if the aftermath is in 4 or 5 states out of 45, no one cares about the aftermath of the riots. That's my point. You can't. These are isolated.
I'm not talking about the riots. I'm talking about the coronavirus.
What about the coronavirus? Who cares? This is the point I'm making. No one cares about coronavirus.
Stop getting your in a fucking twist and listen, because when the aftermath, which is what you're going through now, and people realise, hey, it's not such a big deal, not so many people died, you're going to realise that a lot of people don't have jobs. And before you get your knickers in a twist, let me finish. Not only do you not have jobs, you don't have the kind of flights going on that. You can have loads of industries that are going to become completely redundant. Now you've got people working at home. A lot of the office-based people are going to be, hey, you know, we've got 100 people in the office. Like 80 of them literally don't do anything. You don't need them. We just work on these 20 people. You're seeing automation, especially with Amazon, saying they're going to deliver pretty much everything to you now, to your front door. The amount of jobs that are going to be missing because of the coronavirus. No one cares about what the survival rate is. No one cares what projected figures we got, because now the effects of the economy are going to be a thing you can't ignore.
Why? But
okay, let me go through it again.
No, hold on. Let me ask this question, though. Let me ask this question. Let me ask this. If the world was a certain way 2 months ago, and a virus comes out that we then decide is no more problematic than the flu and everything, why can't, and again, I'm not necessarily saying dump tons of stimulus money in and this and that, but I'm trying to make the point that because the virus is not as lethal as predicted, the idea that we need a new normal is null and void. So there is more of the economy that, and here's the other problem though, is you're falling into the you're falling into the mainstream media trap of thinking New York and California are America. I am still telling you there are large portions of the country where the economy never got shut off. And the people
it did get right, let me explain it to you, because maybe it's because I work in a bank all the time. I'm going to explain to you why you can't just turn the economy back on. It doesn't work like that, because in the Western world, as you know, we run on a credit-based system. It's all based on debt and credit. And what I mean by that is a lot of those chains are now gone. All it takes is a couple of people in that chain to go. And then when they're not paying the bills, which they've already had the service for, the strain that's going to put on a business is going to be astronomical.
And I understand
you can't just turn the economy back on.
Yes and no. Because again, the economy was never fully shut off.
And not only have you got that problem, you've got a problem that, like Trump said, that you said, that a lot of your products are being made in China.
But now let me put this out to you. Paul, let me put this to you. I'm dating someone that works for the Postal Service. They were hired as basically, you'd say, a post office substitute teacher role. They're not even supposed to have hours, basically. They're supposed to just be called when someone calls out. They've been working 10-hour days, 6 days a week. Do you think they need to hire some more people? Like, I know people that are working more than ever. Now,
I don't understand how you can't get into your head that the supply chains is not just America, it's around the world. And going down.
And I get that, but the point I'm trying to make is, you have
and that's because of the economy.
Things find balance. Things find balance. So while we are losing jobs on one end, the amount of work on the other end is growing. So there's opportunities being created elsewhere. Now, granted, maybe
you might go to get a government job. Yeah, granted. Yeah, there'd be plenty of that.
I mean, but even at that, like, I quit 2 of my jobs through this. I said, hey, I can make as much money sitting at home making music now. I mean, that's insane compared to what I've been told. The idea that
Yeah,
I'm
but
looking at
Jane, I
this
don't want to be
saying,
insulting that there's no end result to that job. That's what I mean. A lot of the jobs that are going to be there don't produce, like you're describing it perfectly. There's no product at the end of any of these jobs you're describing, and that's going to collapse it even more.
but
All your fruits of your labor has to produce.
But
We're so far
but
away
and
from that
again, this
community.
is the thing with Operation Warp Speed. You look at this thing and you're saying, all right, people are losing these jobs, this and that. Well, now we've realized the American manufacturing for these things, we're relying on that place. We're relying on that. There's a supply chain problem. How about we bring all these jobs back? And how about we take it? I mean, that's what I'm saying is, yes, there were jobs lost, but now we are looking at going forward and saying, well, where do we really need these jobs? And again, I think the essential, non-essential, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as it's being made out to be. I think it will even itself out. Now, I will say there is a big problem with the fact of these stimulus bills and these unemployment benefits leaving people with the impression that they will make more on the government handout than working. But in this idea that jobs are ending, people are laid off, and there's never going to be another opportunity again.
Not what I'm
That
saying. Don't do that. I'm not saying that. I'm not that ridiculous or retarded.
I just don't see the gloom and doom. Like because here's the
Well,
thing
yeah,
is
because
the
it's gonna take a bit
businesses.
of time to really
Let me put it like this.
get it 3 or 4 weeks. Not that long a time. A
But
lot of
we've
the
been in it for
industry,
2 to 3 months. Like
a
the
lot of the,
businesses I've seen that are put out and are shut down and all that are people like nail salons, hair salons. It's direct
no, you're gonna
person to
see
person
airlines
services.
going down, aren't you?
I don't know because Brett just booked a flight to Jamaica and got a great deal on it. So I really think.
Yeah, because they're fucking desperate, you
But
knobhead.
again, if everyone then starts, it's supply and
They can't
demand
get people
though.
on the bloody plane.
But now if everyone starts looking at it, now that I've heard, hey, flights are really cheap, maybe I should get one. Maybe the next person will think that, and then the supply and demand will even back
Yeah, well then
out.
Brett will go to fucking Jamaica and realize they've got the same issue and it's the worst holiday ever because they got the same problem and nothing's bloody open.
But I don't know. That's not. Paul. I'm telling you, the shutdowns are not what they are of where you're at.
No, I promise you, you're going to see the
I don't
worst
even think.
economic collapse you've heard of since the 1920s, and
I
you're
don't
going to see
buy
it.
it. I hope I hope I'm right. I don't.
Yeah, I hope you're right, but
I don't buy it.
I think you're really underestimating how much of a hit this has taken and how difficult it'll be. It's not just going to be like, oh, just turn the lights back on.
I
It's
don't
going
think
to
it
be
will
way
either.
harder
Like
now
I said, it's not
because
going back to where it was. I think if anything, it will go back to where we were in 2016, which again people were calling a recession. But
dude, you're not going to get. How are you possibly going to get back? That'd be great if you get back to 2016. How much money has Trump pumped in to have everyone sat at home on their fat
the
asses?
2 trillion or something like that.
Whoa. So you're
Yeah.
gonna instead of seeing inflation, you might start
But
some
now,
good
but
news
here's the other
to
thing
help
though.
you with your argument. The best argument you could make.
Here's the other thing
Yeah,
though
and
is
I'll make the best argument for you. The best argument you would make, if I was you, would be it's so bad that instead of seeing inflation, you might see deflation. That's like the best argument I could come up
well,
with
you
for
have it where the Fed is doing negative interest rates, which is very interesting because it's basically like
theft.
it's so I mean, again, I understand that there are all issues. I'm not saying, just this there will just be this rebound with no consequences, but I'm will saying an equilibrium will be found. I don't
Okay,
think
well, if
it's
you can admit that, then it shouldn't be hard to, whatever bad results you're going to get, no one's going to go back and go, oh, well, it's because it's only 0.8% people died from the corona. It's like, it's not even going to come up in the subject. People are just going to be desperate to not starve. People forget what happened 2 weeks ago, man.
yeah, I know. But I look at it like, again, look at like you have it and this isn't the problem. And I will say like I I I will even give it to you that I think California will turn into full-on Mad Max. Like, I think in California, you might have people eating each other. But that is, again, as a result of these lockdowns, business owners are looking at things and saying, this place shut everyone down and was in a complete lockdown, and this other state that's the next one over didn't, and everyone's in better shape. Do I want to live in a place where the government can come in and tell me I can't work, or do I want to live in a place where a government issues an advisory and tells me make the choice for myself? Like, that's where I'm saying I think a balance will be occurred, because the issues that are presented and the way it's sold is that the United States operates in unison, and it doesn't. It's because
Right, well, you got that bill still. How much is this riot bill going to cost you?
well now
You haven't even had that bill coming yet, mate.
well, and I was going to make that point. The Democrats are trying to pass another like $3 trillion deal, and all of the rest of them are like, I don't know if we need this because things are opening back up. Let's at least see what it looks like when we tell everyone, hey, restrictions are lifted, do what you're going to do. Let's see what happens then before we start cutting more checks, because if we cut more checks while we're letting everything open back up, that again disincentivizes people from going back to work.
What you need to do...
I don't need to get out. I need to get in. I need to go to the middle of the country. That's what I'm saying. The problems are all on the outskirts. The problems
Have you ever
are...
seen Escape from New York?
Yeah, I need to get out of New York.
That's how you need to be thinking.
But that's what I'm saying is I think it's going to end up in this...
Jamie, get yourself a fucking eye patch.
I need to get into the middle of the country.
Snake, get the fuck out of there.
Like, there are still states where there is just land with nothing there. Like, and that's part of it, is that we have these, like, metropolis areas that everyone acts like is the country. And it's like, no, the majority of America is still fields and mountains. Like, it's not...
The trailer parks are going to be, like, the highest real estate.
Yeah, they already
Just
are.
give me a fucking caravan and a...
And it's like that's the real problem, is that it's almost like there's two Americas. There's middle America.
Yeah, you got the flyover states, which seems...
See, and that's what I'm saying. These problems aren't affecting the flyover state. And that's the real sort of start.
But
They want them to. I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they're immune.
Boy, that's just how credit works. Like how they're gonna take a hit.
Yeah, and especially when you have a Federal Reserve and things like that. But anyway, I have to get running. I have a ride waiting for me to go and do some errands and all that nonsense. Yeah. But I'm around during the weeks, so like I'll be up early on Thursday.
No one, like, we're still not really allowed out here. Everyone's still social distancing.
That's so
if
crazy.
I walk near someone, jump away.
So crazy. Because I'm telling you, and I'm sure you saw it in some of the Memorial Day footage.
I'm gonna make it like mentally out of this. And it's like I know I'd say if America's in a bad place, England's not looking great.
Yeah, I mean,
until the riot happened, America was looking like a lot more free, and that's why I just think it's all it is a civil war, because. Well, I was really, I know jealous isn't the right word, but when you told me America was reopening, I was like, what the fuck, man? How? We're like pretty much the same. And then literally 2 days later, it's like, it's all on fire.
Yeah.
Should have fucking known.
But and I'm sure this is sort of what you're implying, though, is the riots and all this basically proves what I was saying, that America was ready to just move past this coronavirus thing. And they had to throw something else at us to be like, oh, you think you're just going to go back to life? Nope. Here's a new national fucking, emergency on your lap. Like, and that's the thing, is I do think, I will say we are in trouble in a lot of aspects, because they're going to keep trying this and trying this and trying this. I don't think I don't want to make it sound like I'm too optimistic because I know it's a long road ahead and it will be difficult. But I don't think the areas of concerns are the ones that are the ones put on the forefront.
But what about, let's say you're completely right, like, I'm not just saying to take but let's say you're completely right, yeah? Then they are going to do that because the only option they've got left is to just stop the election.
Yeah.
At any.
Yeah, that's what they're trying. Whether it be the mail-in ballots, whether it be
I mean, I'm
these
not
riots,
convinced
whether it be
myself.
I mean, I'll tell you what. They could but part of it, like, and it's so, you sort of wonder because it's like, imagine if they did this in the end of September. Well, then you really would have people saying, "Can we have an election because I don't want my polling place getting firebombed." Like, it's just one of these things where it's like I sort of ask myself, can they keep this momentum up? How do you keep this sort of momentum burning, or this fire, literal fire in some extent, burning from now till November? And that's where I'm worried. That's my real concern. Is that window. And it's I don't know. Like I'm not very it's and maybe I'm seeming very polarized in this, but again, it's like I realize a lot of these issues are isolated, but they're not going to want it to stay like that. Because again, like I mentioned briefly earlier, a lot of these places where these issues are springing up and these riots and all that, it's very swing state focused. Like, it's very much in the states that were looking like they'd go red, they're now trying to, create this unrest and everything else for, governments to come in. And now, let me put this theory out there too, is it could be a maneuvering so that in these swing states they can enact more control over the elections and pollings and thus end up rigging them so that they go whichever direction they want them to. That, I think, could be going on. But as far as, just long-lasting economic coronavirus and all that stuff, it's hard for me to believe because I think that would have been enough reason to sway the election and you wouldn't need all this riot fucking burning shit. Like, I think the riots and the burnings and all of that right on the heels of the other shows that the impact of the coronavirus wasn't going to be sufficient to do the job they wanted it to. But that's just me making an assumption out of them being like, oh, here's this emergency. Oh, forget that one. Cities burn. Like,
that's what I think it is, man.
Well, yeah, that's what I think it is too, but that's what I'm saying. I think it shows that the long-term impacts of the coronavirus weren't going to be what they were hoping for and weren't going to be as long-lasting. So
well, we still don't know what Bill Gates' phase 2 is going to look like, so I mean, we've still got that one to look forward to.
Well, I'll tell you, my friend Dave said last night he thinks this is phase 2. The fucking
and that's
cities
why,
burning.
Sorry,
and all
but
that.
Trump needs to get Fauci and ask him, what the fuck is phase 2? If you don't tell me, I'm just gonna, you're not gonna be, you're gonna die, man.
Yeah, I you know me, I've been supporting military tribunals since Obama. Let me become president, and I'll be dictator for a week, and then I'll resign. I'll be like, I'm cleaning the swamp with an iron fist, and then you guys can do whatever, cause.
Well, that's what I think this is leading to, and that's where we're finished. I think that is where they're leading to, is that both sides of the camp are going to be like, well, we need to start just all over again, and then we just repeat the same thing about bringing in this new government. We will literally have to have a new government, just a whole new thing. It would be just as bad.
Yeah.
And ridiculous as what we have now, but everyone will be begging for it.
Well, and see, and that's what I was sort of getting at earlier, where it's like this rock and a hard place thing, because you have the stage set where everything the liberty, conspiracy, freedom-minded people, all of their concerns that they never wanted to see a Bush or Obama doing are the seemingly only answers for Trump to enact to solve these problems. And it's in this situation where it's like, okay, well, I don't want to see the cities burn, but I also don't want to see the military deployed domestically. So, I don't know, but let's leave it off there because I got to get running.
That was 2 hours, man.
Yeah, so I'll give people enough to go through. All right, man, I'll talk to you later this week. Let's try to go for
Yeah,
Thursday
cheers, bud.
morning because I'll be up early.
Yeah, I'll be working, so just give me a call, man. I can work and talk.
All right, sounds good, man.
Right, man.